The humming of the terraforming turbines was the closest thing Cade Mercer had to music. He'd grown used to the rhythm, distant, mechanical, steady like a heartbeat that never missed a beat. Orleans 3 was lonely, barren, and mostly silent. He liked it that way. He was alone in the dome, eyes on the data display, when the alert chimed. Incoming transport. Designation, diplomatic transfer, Vasari liaison unit, ***. Cade frowned. He didn't request a liaison. Hell, he avoided them. He tapped the console, rereading the directive. It was stamped with EarthGov's diplomatic seal and a cold, inflexible line of orders. You are to integrate the Vasari hybrid Ilari into your terraforming operations effective immediately. Full cooperation is expected. ***. He exhaled slowly. Of course. Because nothing says progress like forcing people to play nice. He stepped out to the landing platform just as the sleek silver pod settled with a soft hiss. The door slid open. She stepped out barefoot. Tall, lean, and fluid in motion, her limbs moved with an unsettling grace, like a creature designed more for hunting than walking. Short fur shimmered faintly along her skin in hues that shifted like oil on water, and her eyes, gold with elliptical pupils, locked onto his without emotion. Her tail, long and precise, flicked once behind her. I'm Dr. Cade Mercer, he said, keeping it neutral. She said nothing at first. Just scanned the surrounding facility like she was evaluating prey. Then her voice, low and edged with something primal. I am Ilari. I was told I would be working with a human. This will suffice. Charming. He gestured toward the lab. I've prepared a room near the greenhouse module. Private, fully outfitted. She didn't follow. I don't sleep in enclosures, she said. Cade raised a brow. It's not a cage. Her eyes narrowed. Everything here is a cage. You just put glass around yours. Before he could respond, she turned and walked in the opposite direction, toward the top of the observation dome. By nightfall, she hadn't come down. Cade let her be. He studied the report EarthGov sent again. Vasari human hybrids were rare, engineered through tight diplomatic oversight, part of a larger peace initiative. Ilari was technically a scientist, but also a test subject, political symbol, and proof of concept. She wasn't just here to assist, she was here to be seen cooperating. Which meant, one wrong step, and the entire project could implode. He worked alone for another hour, then headed toward the supply wing. He paused near the greenhouse. Her quarters remained untouched. On impulse, he looked up. There, lying across a steel support beam, tail dangling lazily over the edge, was Ilari. Her eyes were open, fixed on the stars. You planning to sleep up there? Is it forbidden? No. Just inconvenient if you fall. I don't fall. He didn't argue. He walked away. The next morning, the silence was already broken. She was in the lab early, crouched beside one of the terraforming pods. No greeting. Just work. Cade watched for a minute. Her hands moved fast, almost too fast for a diagnostic that required patience. But she knew what she was doing. He had to admit that. You skipped calibration, he said. I read the internal signature. It was off by 0.003. I adjusted it manually. He blinked. You read that without a scan? She straightened, not bothering to hide the small flick of pride. Vasari senses are tuned for more than human tools. Cade stepped in beside her. And human tools keep us from making mistakes. She bared her teeth, not quite a smile. Do they? Later, they walked the outer perimeter. A dust storm was building on the horizon, low, fine particulate that could clog the vents if the external turbines weren't cleared. Ilari walked ahead of him, silent and quick-footed. She moved with the ease of someone who trusted the ground beneath them even when it shook. So why did you agree to this? He asked, scanning the turbines. She didn't stop. I didn't agree. Voluntary assignment. That's what the file says. She snorted softly. I was assigned. That's different. He nodded. Yeah. Been there. They reached the ridge. One of the turbines had jammed. Cade began loosening the panel bolts while Ilari crouched beside him, eyes scanning the wiring. He glanced sideways. You know, this station has protocols. It'd help if you followed them. She tilted her head. Is that your way of saying thank you for fixing the regulator this morning? No, he said. It's my way of saying, don't get me killed trying to show off. Her tail twitched. Then stilled. Understood. By evening, the storm had passed. Ilari stayed silent during dinner, crouched on a railing like she might bolt if spoken to. Cade didn't press her. But he did leave an extra thermal wrap on the catwalk before heading to bed. 2 hours into sleep, the motion sensor pinged softly. He sat up. Checked the screen. The lab door was ajar. He stepped out quietly. Inside, Ilari stood motionless, staring at a photo tacked to the back wall, an old, worn image of a girl. Brown hair, freckled smile. My sister, Cade said quietly. Ilari didn't look at him. She died? Yes. Why keep her picture? He hesitated. So I remember the part of me that didn't want to be here. Finally, she looked at him. Her expression unreadable, but not cold. Do all humans grieve out loud? She asked. No, Cade said. Most of us just don't know how to shut it off. She looked back at the photo. Her voice was quieter this time. We bury ours in the sand, so the wind doesn't carry their scent. He had no answer for that. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. Her tail brushed the edge of his wrist, barely a touch, and then was gone. Cade stood alone, pulse a little too fast, the image of golden eyes lingering longer than they should have. Cade didn't know when the shift began. At first, it was simple things, Ilari working in the lab before he arrived, tools precisely arranged, her notes written in a hybrid script of Vaisari glyphs and perfect human block text. She barely spoke, only nodding when necessary. But her presence filled the space like a shadow that refused to leave. She moved like gravity ignored her. No wasted energy, no idle fidgeting. Everything she did had intent. Cade, in contrast, felt clumsy when she was nearby. Today, the schedule called for a full diagnostic sweep of the perimeter vents. It was routine work, slow, dull. Cade loaded the crawler with replacement filters and a 2-day food pack just in case. Ilari met him outside, already suited. No words, just a glance. You always this talkative? He muttered. Only when it matters, she replied, already climbing into the passenger seat. They drove in silence for over an hour. Dust hissed across the crawler's windshield. The sky was pale orange. Winds were light, visibility clear. Ilari leaned forward in her seat, tail wrapped tightly around one thigh, eyes scanning the landscape like she expected it to bite. Cade glanced sideways. You always on edge, or just when I'm around? She didn't look at him. Your species makes too much noise. Even your silence is loud. He smirked. That sounds poetic. It's not a compliment. At Vent Station 3, the diagnostics flagged pressure imbalance in Turbine 5. Cade crouched with the scanner. Ilari stood behind him, tense. Then he heard it, a faint whine from below. Vibration. Not good. Back, he said quickly. Now. She didn't argue. They jumped back as a panel popped loose with a metallic groan. The ground cracked, just a few inches, but enough. Then came the collapse. Cade felt the earth drop beneath his boots. His body slammed against stone and heat. He barely registered the impact before he was tumbling into a shallow sinkhole. Pain exploded down his leg. Rocks fell. Something hissed nearby. Then darkness. A sudden hand grabbed his collar. Clawed fingers, firm but careful. Ilari? Stay still, she ordered. You're bleeding. He blinked up at her. Dirt clung to her fur, a small gash glistening above her brow. Her chest rose and fell fast, but her hands didn't shake. She lifted him like he weighed nothing and dragged him from the pit, one arm around his ribs, the other bracing against the rocks. When they were clear, she dropped beside him and tore open the leg of his suit. The blood wasn't bad, but the ankle was swelling fast. "I'm not broken," he said. "Your species lies too easily," she muttered, applying a cold patch. He laughed under his breath. "You're bleeding too? I heal faster." Cade stared at her, trying to read her expression. It was blank, but her hands were still on his leg, not moving away. "You didn't have to come after me. You're not useful dead," she said flatly. But she didn't let go. They stayed under a tarp, waiting for the crawler's auto-recovery signal to reach the station. Dust hissed against the sides. Cade leaned back, trying to ease the pressure on his leg. Ilari sat beside him, knees tucked close, arms resting on them. Her tail flicked absently. "Why do you really hate being here?" he asked. "I don't hate it. You don't like it either." "I don't belong here." He tilted his head. "Here as in Oralise, or here as in with me?" She didn't answer. He tried again. "You mentioned scent memory once. About how your kind buries the dead to hide their presence." She nodded once. "Is that why you never touch anything soft? No beds. No blankets." She glanced at him, briefly. "We don't touch softness unless we want to keep it." Cade's breath caught. They sat in silence after that. Then, just before he nodded off, something brushed his wrist. Light. Careful. Her tail. Wrapping loosely around it, once. Then uncoiling again, as if it hadn't happened. The next morning, the crawler returned. Ilari helped him inside without a word. Back at the lab, Cade cleaned his gear and noticed her blood on one of the cuffs. He placed it in the cleaning cycle without comment. When he entered the control room, she was already working, tuning a sequence of atmospheric processors. She paused when he came in but didn't move. He approached slowly. "I meant what I said." "Thank you." She glanced at him. "You'd have done the same." "I'm not so sure." "You would," she said, quieter this time. Before he could respond, the calm console beeped. "Incoming vessel. Clearance, diplomatic priority. Identity confirmed, Director Vroskel. ****. Ilari stiffened. Cade felt his chest tighten. "That name means something to you?" She nodded, slowly. "He's the one who oversees my integration. The one who decides whether I'm still viable. You're not a machine. To him, I might as well be." Vroskel's ship docked within the hour. He emerged like someone inspecting a failed experiment, tall, scaled, with a permanent sneer etched into his narrow face. He wore a cloak embedded with sensor threads and didn't bother to greet Cade with a handshake. "Dr. Mercer," he said, voice oily. "I trust the specimen hasn't interfered with your work." "She has a name," Cade said. Vroskel's eyes narrowed. "Of course. Forgive me, Ilari." He turned to her. "You've adjusted to human routines?" "Yes, Director." "Any confusion? Inappropriate emotional responses?" Her expression didn't change. "None." Vroskel turned back to Cade. "We're aware of the human tendency to anthropomorphize. Be careful. Your kind bonds easily. It can cloud judgment." Cade folded his arms. "She's a scientist, not a test subject." "We'll see," Vroskel said. "You'll both be under closer review." That night, Cade found Ilari sitting outside the dome, knees hugged to her chest. He sat beside her. "You okay?" "He came to check if I'm broken," she said. "Or too attached." Cade was quiet a moment. "Are you?" She turned her head toward him, eyes unreadable. "Are you?" The station lights were dimmed for night mode, but Cade was still awake, staring at the communication logs. He hadn't said much after Vroskel's visit. Neither had Ilari. But tension had settled over the dome like fine dust, thick, invisible, choking. He scrolled again through the director's log transmission from orbit. Asterisk. Subject Ilari shows signs of emotional entanglement. Recommend immediate extraction. Memory reconditioning advised. Asterisk. The words made Cade's stomach twist. Reconditioning wasn't recovery, it was erasure. Sanctioned forgetting. Ilari would come back clean, cooperative, and hollow. He shut the screen off. Outside, the desert wind howled faintly. A storm was building. Again. At 0500, the directive arrived. It was stamped with Council priority clearance. No appeal allowed. Asterisk. Subject Ilari to be removed from human contact and returned for re-evaluation. Escort arrives in 6 hours. Prepare for transfer. Asterisk. Cade didn't move for a long time. Then he got up. She was already outside. Ilari stood barefoot on the cliff edge behind the station, her silhouette sharp against the pre-dawn sky. Her fur shimmered a muted blue, grief. He didn't know how he'd learned that, but he had. Every color had started making sense. She turned slightly as he approached. They're taking you? I know, she said. You're not going to fight it? What would it change? He stepped closer. Everything. She exhaled slow. Her tail was still. They think I'm compromised. Are you? Her voice stayed flat. I let myself care. That's enough. Cade clenched his fists. You saved my life. They don't care about that. He looked away. They're going to wipe your mind. Start over. I know. Silence stretched between them. Then she asked quietly, Do you want me to forget you? His heart kicked against his ribs. No. I want you to stay. She turned fully now, and for the first time, he saw something crack in her expression. Fear. I don't know how to fight for something I've never been allowed to want. You don't have to fight alone. Ilari stared at him for a long time. I'm not yours, she whispered. Cade's throat tightened. You don't have to be. But I'm yours. If you'll have me. Her tail moved, slow, uncertain, and then wrapped once around his wrist. Tighter than before. The transport landed 2 hours early. Council officers moved with silent precision, every step rehearsed. Ilari stood near the airlock, her face unreadable, her tail held high but still. Cade stood beside her, shoulders squared. Director Vroskel exited the shuttle first. I expected resistance, he said coolly. Cade held out a tablet. I filed an official appeal. EarthGov has jurisdiction over this station, and they've requested delay for review. You're stalling. I'm protecting a team member. Vroskel stepped forward. You've overstepped, Dr. Mercer. This isn't your decision. I made it mine. He turned to Ilari. You're coming. Now. She didn't move. Her fingers brushed Cade's lightly. Then, in a voice barely audible, Don't let them silence me. Cade reached for the emergency override on his wristband and activated the broadcast. A hidden recording, conversations, footage, the Council directive, began transmitting directly to EarthGov's Oversight Council. Within seconds, Vroskel's comm pinged. Then again. And again. He glanced at the messages. His jaw tightened. You'll regret this, he hissed. No, Cade said. I won't. They didn't take her. Vroskel left in silence, his officers visibly uneasy. The shuttle lifted off with no further confrontation. The sky was clear now, but Ilari stayed standing on the platform, unmoving. Cade stood beside her, breathing slower. You disobeyed protocol, she said after a while. I'd do it again. I could have gone. You didn't. She finally turned, looking him in the eyes. I didn't know I was allowed to stay. You are. For a while, they said nothing. Then she stepped closer and gently placed her forehead against his chest. Not a kiss. Not surrender. Just contact. Cade didn't move. He didn't speak. He let her be. Later, they sat under the dome's glass ceiling as Auralis' twin moons rose. Ilari lay beside him, head resting lightly near his knee, tail curled around his arm like a ribbon. She watched the stars, her voice soft. They'll keep watching. Let them, Cade said. They'll call this weakness. Then they've never been close to something worth fighting for. She blinked slowly. I'm still not your pet. I know. He reached down, gently brushing her hair from her face. But you're not alone anymore. She didn't smile. But her tail stayed wrapped, just tight enough that he felt it in his pulse. And neither of them said another word.